Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being in attendance today. With me are Chief of the Criminal Justice Bureau, Danielle Hageman Clark, Criminal Investigations Division Chief Aubrey Sargent, Assistant Attorney General Eric Sturbis, and from the Michigan State Police Fraud Team West, Detective First Lieutenant Steve Tomelko. Did I get everybody? I did. Great. We're here today to announce that my department, through the Force Team, combating organized retail crime, has charged an individual with 9 felonies in connection to the systemic theft and sale of account access information pertaining to customer accounts for the Meijer grocery chain of stores mPerks program. Meijer customers and mPerks account holders had their mPerks accounts compromised, login credentials sold online, and their accrued purchase points stolen and used fraudulently. The mPerks program is the loyalty and rewards incentive program offered by the Meijer grocery chain. Customers accrue store credit points to the individual accounts by making purchases at the grocer. The points accrued can then be used as cash value towards purchases. Customers establish their own individual accounts to participate in the loyalty program, and they are maintained by Meijer. Meijer offers the mPerks loyalty program through the 6 states in which they operate: Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois, and Wisconsin. This investigation began when Meijer was alerted to these thefts by consumer complaints to the company in April and May of 2023. The customers complained of vanishing points on their accounts, prompting Meijer to contact the fraud investigation section of the Michigan State Police. A joint investigation commenced, comprised of Meijer corporate investigators, the Michigan State Police Fraud Investigation Section, and our Force Team. This investigation discovered encrypted chats and foreign online markets where mPerks account credentials were being offered for sale, advertised with the corresponding points contained within each account. These marketplaces were using cryptocurrency and digital currency platforms in order to facilitate the sales. One seller account stood out to our investigators, identified by the name AlphaLand and other variants of that name. Investigators began closely scrutinizing and tracing the digital transactions of accounts used by the seller AlphaLand. And after finding an anonymous cryptocurrency exchange employed by AlphaLand, we discovered and followed over 300 digital currency wallets using 5 different cryptocurrencies. Following search warrants applied to these digital properties and others upon physical properties, a primary suspect was then identified. Subsequent covert surveillance of this suspect and his residence allowed investigators to determine his Ottawa County home was the location from which the alleged criminal enterprise operated. The Michigan State Police Fraud Investigation Section and Force Team executed a search warrant on the residence that yielded a significant amount of evidence we intend to exhibit in court. In addition, during the search, investigators seized more than $20,000 in cash and $460,000 in digital currency wallets. In all, investigators conducted over 12 search warrants encompassing the residence, vehicles, electronic devices, physical safes, and more. This investigation has led to the charges I'm announcing today. We have charged 22-year-old Nicholas Moy of Grand Haven with 1 count of conducting a criminal enterprise, a 20-year felony, 1 count of use of a computer to commit a crime, a 20-year felony, and 7 counts of identity theft, each 5-year felonies. Mr. Moy was arraigned on Wednesday, December 27th in the 59th District Court in Kent County. He was given a $25,000 cash surety bond and will next appear before the court on January 9th for a probable cause conference. The 7 counts of identity theft account for 7 specified account thefts though it's apparent this crime was committed against hundreds of counts and Meijer customers. And we have charged identity theft in connection to individual victims from Bay County, Emmett County, Ingham County, Kent County, Livingston County, Marquette County, and St. Joseph County. These 7 victims represented by charges and the hundreds more stolen from have been made whole by Meijer. Meijer has reinstated the full previous balance of accrued points to the affected customers suffering thefts at a corporate loss estimated to exceed $1 million. I think that bears repeating that all verified theft victims have been reimbursed for their lost points. Meijer is obviously a significant victim in this criminal enterprise because they ultimately bore the costs of the thefts perpetrated. Organized retail crime costs businesses and consumers over $1 billion every year just in the state of Michigan from losses incurred by retailers, additional expenses of guarding against said losses, and ultimately higher prices that are paid by Michigan consumers. Also, a crucial element to this story, and one that I want to make sure that Meijer shoppers hear, it is our belief that Meijer was not hacked or infiltrated in order to obtain these account credentials. And what we allege to have occurred in this instance is actually called credential stuffing, whereby account credentials obtained in large-scale data breaches are batched and then sold. Regardless of the source of the data, the originating breach target, in this case, was not believed to be Meijer. The credentials are then processed through a software searching for successful access attempts across other login bases. And we're alleging that Mr. Moy acquired a large data set of usernames and passwords on the dark web and put a software to the task of attempting to log in to the mPerks infrastructure with those credentials. So for customers who used the same username and password on the original breached account and their mPerks account, access was then granted and these credentials were sold or offered for sale. For instance, some of the victims for which we've charged are believed to have been compromised in a large-scale breach of login credentials used for the popular fitness app MyFitnessPal, which was hacked several years ago, compromising login credentials of millions of users. Consumers should heed this warning and exercise smart password discipline. If you're notified of a data breach, any data breach, you should be changing your login credentials not just with that breach point platform, but also for any other accounts for which you've used the same login credentials. Additionally, consumers should be changing their passwords at regular intervals and not employing the same usernames and passwords across multiple platforms. And please, whatever you do, don't make your password. That is a surefire way to have your identity stolen. So it's alleged that Nicholas Moy obtained hacked login credentials, cross-referenced those credentials for access success with the mPerks infrastructure, and then sold those login credentials, username, email address, password, and PIN on the internet for the wrongful use of buyers. And the purchasers of the login credentials then use those point balances to fund their own purchases from Meijer, with incidents documented in both online and in-store purchases. With these charges, we believe we've apprehended the main operative and driver of this sophisticated, widespread criminal enterprise. It's a major success of our force team, which I established a year ago this month to target organized retail crime in our state. And to date, the force team has filed over 100 felony charges against 25 different defendants and interrupted or stamped out operations responsible for millions of dollars in losses in retail fraud and related crimes. My force team goes to work every day against criminal organizations that steal products from retailers to repackage and sell for profit. We have 2 assistant AGs that serve full-time in this unit, working with special agents within the Department of Attorney General and the Michigan State Police detectives to investigate and prosecute these crimes. Last September, we expanded our capacity to bring about justice in this field with a partnership with the FBI's Detroit Fraud and Financial Crimes Task Force, which has assigned a special agent to the force team. Now, this is a first in the nation unit, unique in the 50 states as being the first such unit with an embedded, dedicated staff from the Department of Attorney General. Our force team was established to accomplish these successes on the strengths of our partnerships with corporate retailers, and Meijer's been a great partner since the earlier days of the force team. The team is dedicated to working collaboratively with retailers and local law enforcement agencies to combat organized retail crime, and other recent corporate partners on investigations have included Sam's Club, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, TJ Maxx, Rite Aid, Lululemon, Ulta, and Lowe's. And again, I'm going to encourage local law enforcement agencies or retailers who are hearing this and who have evidence of organized retail fraud to please email the force team or contact our department via our website or our phone number. We want to partner with you. We want to work together to combat organized retail crime wherever we find it in the state. And once again, I'm going to stress that I recommend all Michigan consumers practice reasonable password discipline by changing account passwords often, not using the same login credentials across multiple platforms, and always following best practices in the aftermath of a breach if you receive notice that your information has been compromised. Two-factor authentication is an additional layer of protection that, if offered by the platform, consumers should absolutely employ in order to safeguard their information. The Department of Attorney General has guidance for consumers and businesses alike when confronted with data breaches or identity theft. And furthermore, consumers can protect themselves during a data breach by taking the following actions: watching out for phishing emails, not retaining unnecessary data or files, and reviewing their credit report often. Please take advantage of free weekly credit reports from each of the 3 main credit reporting agencies by contacting the federally authorized annual credit report website. And consumers who fall victim to identity theft are encouraged to file a complaint with my department's consumer protection team via phone or online complaint form. Michigan Identity Theft Support, or MITS as we call it here, is an extension of the consumer protection team at my department and is dedicated to helping victims navigate the challenges of identity theft. The signs of identity theft, the various types of identity theft, and the steps needed to combat it are among the resources available to Michiganders on the MITS website. And I'd like to thank the Michigan State Police, particularly the members of their fraud investigation section. I want to especially thank Trooper Spencer Profrock for his incredible work. I'd want to thank from my department, Special Agent Mike Steckel, Assistant AG Eric Sturbis, who just did an incredible job on this. And thanks for the partnership with Meijer. And of course, the dedicated members of our force team for the continued success as they work tirelessly to accomplish as much as we can to combat organized retail crime and to let people know, not here, not in Michigan, we take these crimes very seriously. We are going to investigate them. If the evidence is there, we are going to prosecute, and obviously using our CCE statute, you know, these are serious offenses. So with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Is there any indication that there was other states involved, and is there federal charges possibly?
Right. So we do believe that there were other states, customers in other states that were also victimized, obviously, because of jurisdictional issues. You know, under state law, we're charging the Michigan residents, or at least some of the Michigan residents that are, were victimized. In terms of any federal actions, do we know if anything?
No, we were strictly proceeding under state law.
And I will say, again, we worked really hard with the legislature in order to allow retail fraud to be a predicate offense for our CCE statute. So we have the ability here in Michigan to ensure that, these are very, very serious charges under state law. There are times, for sure, where, the federal laws carry more significant penalties than the state laws, but I don't believe that's the case here. In fact, that's why we worked hard to make sure that our state law is sufficiently covered. Really, the gravity of these situations is not regular shoplifting, right? We're talking about millions and millions of dollars, sometimes just from a single perpetrator.
First question, could you spell this Nicholas Lloyd's name?
We'll have a press release for you guys as you guys walk out. It's-
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's MLI, but we'll have it for
I
you.
guess the second question, you're talking about he purchased credentials online. Is this credentials from former employees he was able to access mPerks, or was this credentials of individual users' information? Can you kind of explain that a little bit? What he originally-
Yeah, my understanding it's individual users' information from other data breaches that was then on the dark web that, had all of that information. And then if you, obviously using, software, you can match it up. And a lot of people use the same passwords for multiple accounts. So did I get that right?
You
Yeah.
did, yes.
Yeah, so it's not through employees. It was their information that was already out there from, again, other data breaches. And we do think that a lot of this came from MyFitnessPal, and that was a major, major breach. Millions and millions of users several years ago, and a lot of that information now is just floating around the dark web and can be purchased.
Beth?
Do you have a time period in which you believe this occurred? And then also, were you guys surprised at all by the age of Nicholas? I mean, he's pretty young.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. I'm not surprised by the age. You have a lot of young people that are, very savvy. And, we were just talking about like the education that people unfortunately are receiving via their access to the dark web. And so I think a lot of these perpetrators are young people who are just very sophisticated in their knowledge of, technology and how, the darkest realms of the internet. In terms of the time period, Eric?
We're looking at crimes occurring within the past 2 years.
Okay.
One other question. I guess the fact that he was paid with cryptocurrency, was it cryptocurrency alone? And does that complicate efforts like holding him responsible? Like, does the state law acknowledge that as receiving funds in exchange for a crime?
Yeah, we plan the same way that we have criminal asset forfeiture laws that apply to physical property or apply to a bank account. The same is true for cryptocurrency. So, we have seized that via search warrants, and, we do intend to use that for, restitution purposes for Meijer, and also under the criminal asset forfeiture laws, a certain percentage of that also goes to pay for law enforcement, related costs as well.
I know you mentioned different ways on how to protect yourself, changing your passwords, but in some cases, is, retail fraud unavoidable?
Well, will at some point, people be taken advantage of this way? We're seeing so many data breaches recently, right? And I don't know how many of you saw me talk about the Corewell Health data breaches, where we talked about the fact that, honestly, our laws in Michigan are woefully insufficient. And these data breaches, no matter how sophisticated the security is for any particular company, they're always trying to be one step ahead of these bad actors. But, this is going to happen from time to time. That's why I've been pushing really hard for us to have better laws in Michigan when it comes to cybersecurity protections and breaches. We need to have a system in Michigan where, as soon as there is a breach, that immediately a customer or a consumer is alerted, and that we're alerted here at the Department of Attorney General. Because again, so many times we find out about these breaches from you all. We find out from the media, and it's very hard for us to help people when we don't know that this breach has occurred. And so, we are asking our allies in the legislature to please consider updating the law and having it better mirror the 34 states in America that, mandate reporting. So we think that's very important to do, certainly. But all of these ways that I've already listed are just basic methods for people to better protect themselves. And then again, understanding that this does happen to everybody at some point. But the important thing is that, as soon as you are alerted to it, to make sure that you're doing all these things and changing your passwords and all the rest of the things. And again, monitoring your credit is very, very important. A lot of people utilize services like LifeLock, for instance, so that they're immediately alerted before somebody can take out, say, a credit card in their name or make a purchase in their name. Obviously, in this case, it's a little bit different because you're talking about these mPerks points. But, that's why we're happy that that Meijer made the decision to restore the number of points that people had accrued. A lot of people, I'm sure, shop at Meijer just for those points. But, like anything, yes, crime is going to happen, but that's why we have to do everything in our power to make sure that we have the best state laws to protect people, and that we're providing these types of alerts so that people can best protect themselves.
Anna?
Hey, Jeannie, Anna Nichols from Michigan Advance. I don't know if this is a weird thing to say. This isn't where I would personally expect my data to be breached, my Meijer rewards points. For scale and where this can reach people's lives, could you elaborate, or somebody elaborate on, does it have to be a serial issue for these things to get caught? Is it individualized, that it's mostly up to the individual to detect these things? Or how often does this go under the radar? And, in terms of, this is me, Nicholas, was this like his first offense? Are these first-time offenders that do this? Or does this go undetected for a long time?
I think it depends on the scenario, right? The more people that you have who are complaining that, they, for instance, see that they're zeroed out on their mPerks, and when they know that they should have accrued whatever hundreds or thousands of points, the more people that are making that complaint, the more obvious it is what really happened, right? But yeah, I'm sure there are times that it goes undetected for a period of time. But that's why, like I said, I think people have to do everything they can to be cognizant of their own finances, whether it's, extra points on a credit card or, an mPerks card or something like that, and just be aware at all times that this could be occurring and, watch out for yourselves, but also make those complaints. But for, so many people obviously making those complaints to Meijer, how would they have known? And I think that is the important thing. Now, a lot of people might say like, okay, well, these are extra points and, something seems fishy. I don't know what happened, but it's not worth it for me to say anything. I mean, when you see something, say something, and by reporting it, that's how we're able to get involved, because we know about it. But if you don't say anything, then, it makes it difficult for us. And, I will say this, and I do a lot of senior town halls all over the state of Michigan, especially since seniors tend to be targeted more than any other class of people. But a lot of times people are embarrassed. They think they did something wrong, and so they don't want to report it, which first of all can lead to an escalation because now their information is already out there. But also, how are we supposed to investigate a crime that we don't know took place? So that's why we're really encouraging people, when you see something like this, please immediately report it to our department, because, once we see that that's occurred, it allows us to move forward.
Colin and then John.
Hi, just a quick question. For clarification, are you able to say which cryptocurrency was used? Like, was it Bitcoin or?
Bitcoin was a large cryptocurrency involved here, yes.
So it was a mix of various ones?
Yes.
John?
And forgive me if you already said, I just didn't hear you, but kind of stepping back, can you clarify how he allegedly made his money? Was it the selling of these identities then? And also, do you have an overarching idea of how much he may have allegedly stolen, and why only 7 particular cases charged?
Right. Well, In terms of the selling of it, he was selling the points, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you're selling the points for a fraction of what the points would be worth, right? Then obviously he's still making a large profit on that. If you're talking about, many thousands and thousands of points. So that's how how he was able to make that money. In terms of the number of accounts, yes, it's far greater than 7. But the thing is that, for every complainant that we have, that's somebody who has to come into court and testify and all the rest of it. We're not going to have hundreds and hundreds of people come in, and at a certain point, it doesn't matter if you charge, whether we've charged, these 7 individuals. It doesn't matter if it's 7 or 50 or 100 or 1,000 in terms of, the penalty and the guidelines. So we're not going to inconvenience people, obviously, unnecessarily. But as always, we want to make sure that people are properly indemnified. In this case, they already have been indemnified. It's really Meijer that's out the money at this point. Was there a third part of your question? I don't recall.
You have an overarching idea
Oh, of how many?
may have allegedly stolen in the whole, and also, did you say, if I didn't mishear, that he was also selling identity information on the dark web as well?
Do you want to say that?
No, there's no information that we believe, well, selling identity information, yes, in the fact that he's selling individuals' username, emails to access those Meijer mPerks points. So yes, identity theft is obviously 7 of the counts that we've charged on this complaint and warrant. So yes, that is alleged to have happened. And how much money, I want to, remind you that this investigation still is ongoing, and I think in the course of time, we may be able to better answer kind of how much money he was able to kind of make off this scheme a little bit better than I would be able to answer that question today.
Do we know how many victims at this point, though?
Total were thousands, presumably thousands, reasonably thousands of victims spanning, 6 states.
Is it appropriate to think of hundreds of thousands of dollars more?
Well, considering the fact that we've got, dollars seized approaching the range of 500,000 for sure.
Yeah, and it's reasonable to think that, he wasn't just all saving it up for a rainy day. I mean, it's reasonable to think that he spent a lot of money as well, and that's just what was there when the search warrant was executed.
Hold on, Colin had another.
Hi, when you say the investigation is ongoing, does that mean you're expecting to possibly bring more charges against other individuals in this case as well?
Yeah, we haven't ruled that out.
Andrew?
Can I ask one more?
Hold on, Andrew, I just called on Andrew. I'll get Andrew, Anna, and then back to you, John.
Real quick, you mentioned that the legislature should do something about this. Was there something specific that you had in mind that the legislature should implement to be able to help prevent this or help prosecute crimes like this?
Yeah, well, I would say generally, when it comes to data breaches, what I would be looking for as Attorney General from the legislature is, something that is, essentially states that as soon as a business, as soon as a company finds out that there's been a data breach that involves the personal information of their customers, that they immediately have to convey that to both their customers, whose data now is floating around out there, as well as to the Department of Attorney General. That's what many other states do. What we have seen time and time again, and I'm not talking about this investigation specifically, I'm talking about many of these other data breaches, is that sometimes it'll be, 6 months, a year, before a company will even tell the customers that, their information now has been breached. And, every day that goes by that person's information is out there is a day that a person could be better protecting themselves and possibly isn't because they just don't know. And so I think it's reasonable that if you were going to require a customer in order to do business with you, whatever your business is, to provide all of this personal information, right? Name, date of birth, email address, social security number. In the case of some of these healthcare information companies, I mean, we're talking about some of the most sensitive information in the world, right? Your diagnoses, your medical diagnoses, what testing you have done, any prescriptions that you take. I think it's reasonable to say that if somebody has accessed that information, a bad actor, that you let the individual know as soon as possible. But that's not the law in Michigan, and as a result, the companies can choose to tell their patients or their customers, or they can choose not to. And I mean, it's upsetting, and I think it's a violation of trust with those customers or consumers, and we need better laws to address it, no question.
I guess a follow-up would be, do you know if Meijer actually did that?
If they notified the customers? Yeah.
Well, like the Attorney General indicated, through an investigation done by Meijer, the Michigan State Police, we do not believe that this data breach occurred at in the Meijer system itself. As was indicated, this information was obtained from a prior data breach. So Meijer found out about it through the complaints of their customers and took immediate action by immediately engaging the efforts of the Michigan State Police, investigating this very diligently to where we're all able to be here today with the news of these charges.
Anna, and then John, and then I think that's probably all we have time for today.
I apologize if this has already been announced or put online. How many arrests has the force team made / investigations? Maybe how much, what's been
Yeah,
gained by victims?
right. Well, in terms of how many defendants, what did we say? Was it 25 that we've charged so far?
At this point, yes.
Yeah, so we've charged 25 so far. And Eric, do you have an idea if you've ever compiled this in terms of the millions of dollars that at least has been alleged to have been stolen that we've now prosecuted people on?
We're already at this point 8 months into our force team existence, well in excess of I would say $7-8 million.
Been given back to victims?
These, because obviously prosecutions take time, that generally will happen at the end of a prosecution. Under the criminal asset forfeiture laws, you need a conviction. So, and you have to go through the entire process in order to then be able to convert the money that is seized or any properties or assets that a defendant has in order for the court to legally allow that to be turned over for restitution purposes.
So for readers' understanding, there's about $8 million on the table that could be.
Well, actually, it's more than that because of the statute. Do you want to explain how the statute works?
Well, as far as all these investigations, some yield money, cryptocurrency as in this case, and cash. Some do not, but still have dollar loss value, but that money has either been spent or is no longer available to us. But in many of our investigations, we are able to kind of access, freeze, seize assets that can later be used to reimbursing victims, corporations, so on and so forth.
Right, John?
Thank you. My question is just kind of back to the loan actor here, apparently, 22 years old. I think a lot of people just might be surprised by that. Over the course of the year, I guess what I'm asking is this an unusual scenario? Is this a typical scenario? Do you see a lot of different things? But not knowing any better, it surprises me one lone person sitting behind their computer can pull this off.
Yeah, well, I don't think we've seen a lot of octogenarians so far. But do we have like an average age, would you say, of some of these actors that are performing?
Well, I think, to highlight the efforts just of the force team and Michigan State Police in having somebody conducting an investigation like this involving an individual sitting behind a computer is, by its nature, I think, somewhat unusual and kind of groundbreaking. But I think, just generally speaking, crimes involving computers and technology tend to kind of favor those younger in age, just by the nature of daily habits and living habits of people in their 20s and 30s versus the older generation.
Thank you very much, everyone. If you guys want to stay put, I will spell everyone's names for you, because I apologize we didn't do that in advance. Thank you, AJ.
Thanks, everybody.